How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Should you want to get the show notes and the like. By the way, this hour of the program is sponsored by Van Allen Golf, vanallengolf.com. If you text golf to 33777, you can get a link, or just go to vanallengolf.com, A-L-L-E-N. Check them out on Instagram. I got a great listener email last night about their dealings with Van Allen Golf and how excited they were to be able to get a putter from them. They really are great people. Now, we must talk about Virginia. You're out in Sacramento. You're listening on KSTE. You're like, Virginia doesn't really apply to me. Why do I care? Because what the Democrats are doing in Virginia is very much what the Democrats in California did to try to deal with the Texas redistricting problem. And that is essentially to rewrite their Constitution. We live in postmodern times. I don't want to go on ad nauseum about postmodernity. I've done it twice in the last week, including yesterday. But one of the things you need to know is this. In postmodernism, power comes from words. If you redefine a word, you give that word new power. So if you redefine the word blue to mean green, well, then blue becomes green. It's one of the reasons in postmodernity, instead of saying slaves, people talk about enslaved people. Why do they say enslaved people instead of slaves? Because by saying they are enslaved people, someone has done something bad to them, and enslaved people highlights their victim category. It's not a homeless person. It's an unhoused person. See, they're a victim because they don't have a house. If they're a homeless person, that's a state of being. An unhoused person is someone who needs a home, and they are a victim because they are not housed. They redefine words. What is a constitution? What is a constitution? It's a series of laws that govern the structure of a society that are binding on the population. It is the highest series of laws and requires major votes to change. No. A constitution is a series of words. It's just words. So if you can change the definition of the words, it's a living document, and it changes with the times. So California it did a big dog and pony show of they wanted redistricting models that they claim were fair to avoid gerrymandering, and then they stacked the nonpartisan redistricting commission. They stacked it with a bunch of Democrats. Even the Republicans who were picked by the governor of California to be on the commission were actually Democrats. They just changed their title to Republicans, said, "See, I put Republicans on," and they drew districts that were biased to the Democrats. In Virginia, the Constitution of the state of Virginia bars partisan gerrymandered redistricting. In Virginia, Joe Biden got about 56% of the vote, and the Democrats in their congressional districts got about 56% of the vote. Pretty fair redistricting model. It was done by a nonpartisan commission. In fact, it was done, the Democrats got to pick a guy and the Republicans got to pick a guy, and they got to agree on maps. that were as fair as possible, and they did. Virginia had the most fair of the redistricting models that requires outside people to draw it. Sean Trendy of Real Clear Politics, by the way, was one of the people involved, and they drew a nonpartisan map, the Democrats and Republicans together, because you had to have a Democratic map drawer and a Republican map drawer, and the two had to agree. Joe Biden got 56% of the vote in Virginia, and the Democrats got about 57% of the congressional vote. And by the way, their math works out for their current representation in Congress of about 57%. The Democrats now want to take a state that's a 55 to 57% Democratic state and do a 90-10 split. They want to ensure that 9 out of 10 congressional districts become Democrat. One of them looks like a lobster. In some cases, in Virginia, which, by the way, the Constitution says you've got to have nonpartisan redistricting that keeps communities of interest together. What the Democrats have done is they passed this redistricting plan, and today it's up for a vote for the people, essentially saying to the people, will you ignore the Constitution of Virginia and put this map in the name of fairness, by the way? They refuse to show a picture of the congressional districts on the ballot. And the ballot question is so rigged and biased, it could actually probably be thrown out of court after the vote. In fact, the Virginia Supreme Court has said it's still an open question as to whether or not they can do this, but they want to let the vote happen first before they decide. The Virginia Supreme Court, given the intricacies of it, it may very well strike this down if it passes because of the biased nature of the question on the ballot. It is wild to see just how biased the Democrats decided to embrace this map. And I'm trying to find this question for you. Brad Todd, the political strategist, put it up when he went to vote. Yep, here it is. Should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections, while ensuring Virginia's standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after the 2030 census? You got that? So it's only going to be temporary. It's just going to be now. It's for fairness. What is the fairness? What is the fairness? The district map in Virginia is pretty fair right now, but the Democrats aren't fighting at that level. The Democrats are fighting at a national level. And what the Democrats say is, well, what Texas did wasn't fair. But California combated Texas and neutralized Texas. So now what Virginia is doing isn't fair because California neutralized Texas. Virginia wants to take it a step further. Now, this is where those of you in Florida come in. Your governor, Ron DeSantis, has said he is going to wait to see what happens in Virginia today. If Virginia voters kill redistricting in Virginia, he may not call a special session of the legislature in Florida to redistrict Florida. If Virginia refuses to go along, Florida might refuse to do anything. Be a rather big deal, actually. Rather big deal. We'll see what happens. Now, the odds are it passes in Virginia. Interestingly enough, you know the one major political entity that spent exactly $0 in Virginia? Let's play Jeopardy, y'all. Let's play Jeopardy. Of the major political groups in the United States of America, this political organization spent not a single penny to fight the redistricting effort in Virginia. What is the GOP? You would be right. How much did you bet? Nothing. There's no reason to bet anything on the GOP. The GOP spent not a single thing. The Republican National Committee spent $0 in a 50-50 matter. Now, I will tell you, looking at turnout right now in Virginia, both early voting and same-day voting, this is not a sure thing passing today. It may not pass. A lot of people are very angry that the Democrats came into power in Virginia and immediately rushed to raise taxes. But wait, there's more. There is also the decision in the Supreme Court. You see, In the United States Supreme Court, there's a pending case on the Voting Rights Act out of Louisiana. The Louisiana legislature was required by a federal court to draw an additional majority-minority district. Louisiana argued that it was forced to draw a racial gerrymander, that the state did not want to draw a racial gerrymander. There was already one majority-minority district by virtue of the way the lines were drawn in Louisiana, and that Louisiana did not want to draw an additional discriminatory district. Federal judges said yes. The case is pending before the Supreme Court. It was argued last year and sent back to be re-argued on some additional points. It was heard in October. Now, the way the Supreme Court works is every justice of the Supreme Court, all 9 of them, each month that there are cases, they get a case. And they write the majority opinion. So John Roberts has written an opinion in the majority for October. Ketanji Brown Jackson has. Elena Kagan has. Sonia Sotomayor has. Amy Coney Barrett has. Brett Kavanaugh has. Clarence Thomas has. And Neil Gorsuch has. The only case from October that has not yet been submitted, and the only person from the Supreme Court who has not yet written a majority opinion from October is Sam Alito. The odds go up that Sam Alito has written the case. Now, question is he in the majority? Did Roberts do something to gut it? Probably not. John Roberts is a longtime advocate that the Voting Rights Act needs to die, that it's a relic of a bygone era, and it increasingly enables discrimination in the country. And he has whittled it down more and more and more. He's declared certain sections. Section 5, for example, is unconstitutional. This is Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And it's essentially the section that people have relied on for majority-minority districts in the United States. If Sam Alito is in the majority, that means that the Louisiana case is going to go back with Louisiana able to get rid of its majority-minority districts. If that's the case, it suddenly allows Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida. It allows them all to get back in and redistrict without fear of race. One of the hangups for Ron DeSantis in Florida for redistricting was this Louisiana case that's outstanding to the Supreme Court, but also he decided to hit pause and see what Virginia does today. It is no sure thing that Virginia is going to vote to do this redistricting plan. And then if it does vote to do the redistricting plan, it's no sure thing the state Supreme Court is going to uphold it as worded. The odds are they will, but they might not, given the nature of the Virginia Supreme Court, which isn't very it's not very partisan. The Virginia Supreme Court is very institutional. Words really matter to the Virginia Supreme Court, and calling that redistricting fairness might be a trigger for them. We'll see. What we know is that today in Virginia, they're being asked to amend their constitution temporarily because the Texas Republicans did something that the California Democrats then tried to undo with their own redistricting, and now Virginia's caught up in it. And if Virginia, by the way, goes and does this redistricting plan, you may then have incentive for Indiana to go forward, Florida to go forward, and if the Supreme Court decision comes down, other states to go forward and really hurt the Democrats' chances. It all comes down to Virginia today. If the Virginia Democrats are able to do this redistricting, you may see a rush of new redistricting out there in the states. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, would be very happy to have you. I got to mention John Turnus. Tim Cook is out at Apple. He has been the CEO for 15 years, taking over from Steve Jobs. He is now going to be elevated to the executive chairman. He is considered by many in Silicon Valley as a Trump whisperer. He knows how to deal with President Trump and also the EU commissioners. He's highly regarded by them. Turnus is a hardware guy. native of California, went to the University of Pennsylvania, got a degree in mechanical engineering, was a robotics guy, went back and took over hardware over time at Apple, worked his way up through the top, and will be the CEO. By all accounts, a very personable, hands-on guy who, unlike Tim Cook, likes to make the decision. Steve Jobsian, if you will, in that regard, without being the sort of personality Jobs was. So Cook at Apple liked to get consensus on issues. He didn't like to make demands or settle on things. He got consensus. Turnus likes to take responsibility for decisions, own them, whether they work or not, and make the final decision. He's not a fan of the Apple Vision Pro, which I got to tell you, I got one. The only time I use it is when I'm in bed watching movies by myself. There's just, I don't see the need for the Apple Vision Pro. There are some technical uses for it, I suppose. But Turnus has been a big fan of this new MacBook Neo that has come out, which is a game changer for Apple. They're selling it for like $600. Many suits at Apple didn't want a very cheap laptop. Turnus did. He pushed it, and it's now so hot they've sold out of the MacBook Neo, and they're having to rebuild stock. He's a very interesting guy. Big into car races, athletics. It's going to be very interesting to see his comparison from Tim Cook. John Turnus takes over as the CEO of Apple on September 1st. I will tell you on a personal note, I have had several very pleasant interactions with Tim Cook over the years. I'm a big Apple fan. You know, Rush and I, when we developed our friendship before I started in radio, one of my duties as a friend of Rush was to watch the Apple live events and text Rush during his show to keep him up to date on the Apple stuff. And then we started racing each other to buy them. And he started cheating by having a guy on the payroll who would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to buy his iPhones and beat me and then rub it in. He did send my wife new iPhones. Never sent me one, sent my wife new iPhones. Nonetheless, we had a shared love of Apple, and I've had my share of exchanges with Steve Jobs before he died and with Tim Cook as well. And Tim, very nice guy, an Auburn grad, no less, from Alabama, and he'll be the executive chairman as John Turnus becomes the CEO of Apple. Used to be Apple Computer, now it's just Apple. He'll be a great fit. Now, let me tell you about Swiss America. They want to keep you up to date with the secret war on cash that the government is trying to steer you towards, using plastic instead of using currency, instead of using crypto. The government wants to highly regulate and observe your purchases. Swiss America also wants to keep you up to date on what's happening in the global currency crisis and commodities, and they will give you bleeding edge information to keep you ahead of your neighbors. So when you make your investment decisions, you'll be in the know first. You know, knowledge is not power. Knowledge before everybody else is power. In Swiss America, they give you that sort of power to be in the know quickly so you can make decisions. Go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric today, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. You can fill out the form on that page and get the Secret War on Cash report to you completely free. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. Go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric. SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. Sign up with Swiss America today. Let them make you more knowledgeable about the markets, global currencies, the BRIC nations, and fill you in on the secret war on cash. SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. Sign up with Swiss America today. My friends, welcome. My apologies to those of you on the phones who couldn't be patient. We've had a lot to cover today. 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be happy to have you. By the way, there's an update here from James Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, on the missing or dead scientists.
It does appear that there's a high possibility that something sinister is taking place here. This has been going on, obviously, for the last 3 years. So what I found in 3.5 years as chairman of the House Oversight Committee is sometimes government agencies don't do a good job of sharing information on situations like this. So we've asked all those agencies, the Department of Energy, NASA, the Department of War, to all share information with us so that we can see if we can put it together and find any missing links to try to solve what's going on here, because it's it's very unlikely that this is a coincidence. So Congress is very concerned about this. Our committee is making this one of our priorities now because we view this as a national security threat.
It is a national security threat. I'm glad they're taking it seriously, although I don't know that the House Oversight Committee is the best place to find patterns. But I'm glad they're taking it seriously. Now, I want to talk about education. Moving on from raw politics here, although this gets to some degree to be about politics. CNBC has this report out. Incoming college freshmen will rack up an average of $43,000 in student loans by graduation. With National College Decision Day approaching, college affordability is a top concern for most students and their parents. Around 46% of 2026 high school graduates will go on to a four-year college or university. By the time they graduate from college, these students could each borrow an average of $43,000 in federal and private aid to earn a bachelor's degree, up from $40,000 the year before. Rising college costs are largely to blame for swelling student debt balances. In recent decades, tuition has increased 5.6% a year on average, outpacing inflation and other household expenses. And it's still rising about 5% a year. This has helped put a growing number of schools near the $100,000 threshold. In most cases, families cover about half of college costs with income and savings. Free money from scholarships and grants accounts for more than a quarter of the costs, and student loans make up the rest. Currently, around 42.8 million Americans hold $1.696 trillion combined in federal student loans. More than 1 million high school graduates will take out new education debt in the months ahead. College tuition is outpacing inflation, and in large part, one of the singular reasons is because of the cheap access to student loans. So you get a student loan, you don't have to start paying on it until you're out of college. So you don't feel it. So it feels like you've got no burden on you. So you go to college. The college has no incentive to keep the costs down because you don't have to pay the student loan until you get out of college. It's an overwhelming burden. Now, full disclosure, I got to tell you, I've still got a lot of student. I'll be another 10 years, I think, paying off my law school loans. It's only $400 a month, but still, if I really get on the Dave Ramsey model, I'll pay it off sooner. Nonetheless, still paying on my student loans. Mine were private lending loans too, so the government's not going to forgive my loans. I worry about my son. He wants to go to Samford University. My daughter got a great scholarship to go to Mercer University. We pay about $2,000 a month, and mostly it's room and board costs for her. Her tuition and stuff is pretty much paid for with scholarships. Worry about my son. He wants to go to Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama. He's got good grades, although he's taken some challenging classes and that brought down his GPA. Like he's doing calculus. He doesn't really need calculus, but he didn't want to be in the other class. Having a class of a smaller group of kids who are willing to be academically challenged versus the kids who want to phone it in. He didn't want to be in the phone it in class, so he's taking the harder math class, and it's hurting him. He doesn't actually even need calculus at Samford for the architecture program he wants to be in. They do a more engineering-oriented math. He's got to take physics next year for it. But I worry about student loans. He's got his first SAT back at 11:30. He's probably going to take it again and take the ACT. I worry about student loans, though. We've worked real hard so our daughter wouldn't have to be burdened with student loans. I don't want my son to be burdened with student loans. Samford is pretty much more responsible than other schools, but colleges are beginning to price themselves out of the market. Now, on top of that, there's this. State schools, there's always going to be a need for state schools. Kids want to go to the University of Georgia here in Georgia. They want to go to UConn in Connecticut. They want to go to Michigan or Michigan State. In Louisiana, all my friends want to go to LSU. I was like, I'd rather Tulane, but they wanted to go to LSU. I didn't want to be at a giant school. I wanted to go to Mercer University in Macon, Georgia, my alma mater. It's where my daughter's going. Had I stayed in Louisiana, I definitely would have been Tulane. Didn't really want to go to LSU. Texas A&M, University of Texas, big schools, big college towns. Man, the Texas A&M guys, y'all are a cult. You love it. Yeah, I mean, y'all breathe Aggie culture. There's always going to be a need for the state schools. What about, though, the private schools in the country? Here's part of the problem as well. In addition to colleges pricing themselves out, there's also been a decline in birth in this country. Every single year from here on out, there are going to be fewer and fewer kids going to college. Unless the nation opens the door to immigrants, which is not happening at least for the next couple of years while Trump's in office, what's going to happen to the small private school? I am familiar with several small private schools in my area that are struggling financially now. With the exception of alumni who are trying to push their kids to go, there's not a big recruiting demand, and they're having trouble financially keeping the doors open. I think about my alma mater, Mercer University. It's a great school. It's got great programs. It's got a killer engineering school, a medical school, a nursing school, a pharmacy school. It's got a heretical theology school. You name it, it's got it. It's got a law school. The law school has gone woke. It's sad to see my law school alma mater at Mercer is just, I would not send my kid there. But the university itself, it's a great university. It's got a beautiful campus. How does it distinguish itself, though? As more and more schools get woke, and Mercer, I don't think is woke, but it's got some woke departments. I mean, my daughter got to watch a kid get lectured for using wrong pronouns in an art class. My daughter, a great artist, decided not to continue in the art program. What happens to a school, or a Berry College in Georgia, a shorter college? Emory has a big alumni network, but think about the small private colleges in your communities. And the reason I bring this up is I think about Samford University. Samford has a strong faith component. It's Southern Baptist. There's a lot of prayer, a lot of Jesus talk. There's a lot of stuff that revolves around the church at Samford. I've got friends of mine who went to school with me at Mercer who sent their kids to Samford because Mercer kind of walked away from its faith component. It claims to be Christian, but not really. What about the private schools? As parents are having fewer kids who are growing up to go to college, how are some of these private institutions in the nation going to keep their doors open? I'm not that worried about my alma mater, Mercer, given its broad scope and diversity and the programs that it offers. But there are some private schools out there that are going to be shutting their doors in the next 2 years. And it's not just them. Public schools, public elementary and secondary education schools are beginning to close their doors. Every single year in this country from now, there are going to be fewer kids going to public school. Not only that, there are fewer families sending kids to public school because of how bad public schools have gotten in the country. We're going to start reading about school closures in the next year or so for public schools in this country. That's not an exaggeration. It's already on the docket. A number of major school systems in the country are already having conversations about which schools do they close down because they don't have enough elementary school kids showing up anymore because parents are either homeschooling their kids or they're sending their kids to private school. A lot of states that have adopted robust private school funded school choice plans are seeing families fleeing the public schools. And by the way, that's not a bad thing. I'm not lamenting the closure of public elementary and secondary schools. I think it's a good thing if it's because parents are homeschooling or sending their kids to private schools with school choice dollars. Public schools abused their monopoly in too many cases. In a lot of cases, colleges are having to do remedial education. Colleges are having to reteach kids basic mathematics because public schools are failing. What are we going to do? At the collegiate level, there's going to be a lot of real estate opportunities out there. There's a school near me, Wesleyan College. It's all-girls school. I don't know what the demand is for all-girls schools these days, but more and more I suspect it's probably struggling. I think they've had the debate of what is a girl and can a boy who identifies as a girl go? I think they've been in the midst of that battle now. The school, from what I hear, I'm not sure myself, but I've heard it's not doing fantastic financially because there are fewer and fewer kids who want to go to an all-girls school. I think about Hampton, Sydney in Virginia. That school made a full-court press for my son, and it was some of the most embarrassing mail pieces. He's like, Dad, these people are trying way too hard. He wrote them off. He didn't want to go to an all-boys school either. But there's Hollins and there's Hampton, Sydney up there. Are they going to have to combine? I mean, what do you do? These are questions that college administrators are going to have to start asking themselves as we have fewer and fewer kids in this country every year. And you know what the offset's going to be from the Democrats? It's going to be to open the doors to immigration, mass immigration, give them scholarships and then give them citizenship. You know exactly where the Democrats are going to go. I think I'd rather the schools close. The colleges that are going to be able to segment themselves the best are the ones that keep costs reasonably low, give as many scholarships as possible, please, Sanford, for my kid, and have a faith component that encourages like-minded believers to show up on campus. One of the great segments in the future for higher education is going to be a faith component, an actual commitment to faith that will segment schools, particularly among private schools. That's going to segment them. And the faith-based education institutions, I suspect, are going to do better because those parents tend to be more committed. So they want their kids to go to a faith-based school. Colleges are pricing themselves out of the market and they're bankrupting kids, saddling kids with massive amounts of debt. Public schools are failing our kids. They're not learning to read, write, or do math. They're learning how the gender unicorn and pronoun games. Parents are leaving elementary and secondary education to make sure their kids get a good education. That's hurting those schools at the local level. Then you've got situations like in my area, there's a public school that didn't have enough kids. They shut it down, but then the local government doesn't want to sell the school to the private sector. They're holding on to school, wishing for kids to come back. Maybe they can do something. God forbid they free the real estate up to the private sector. These are a lot of tough questions. But as kids are headed into the workforce, and they also have the AI challenges, they're going to be saddled with $43,000 on average in student loans this year unless they get good scholarships so their family ponies up. That's not really fair to the kids if they go to a school where the degree does not translate into jobs. The traditional academic model is starting to give way to the schools that are interested in making sure kids can make money when they get out of school, and that's a functional point. High Point that made it into the final, it made it into the NCAA March Madness, surprised a lot of people. People were like, "Where does this school come from?" That is a school that is totally focused on when you get out of college being ready for a job. Being ready to make deals, knowing how to do a job, not just the academic knowledge of the great books program, but an actual fully functional human being able to function in the workforce. Sanford University over in Birmingham, Alabama, same way. They want you to be able to use AI in school so you know how to use it when you get a job. A lot of schools are resisting this sort of stuff, and a lot of schools are just doubling down on we're going to make you pay big bucks for an academic degree that you can not use for anything when you get out of school. We're about to see the freeing up of a massive real estate boom as colleges go out of business and have to sell their land. Start saving your money if you want some great academic buildings, I guess. To the phones, 877-973-7425. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you?
Excellent, Eric. How are you today, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for calling.
Just wanted to follow up on your conversation about the cost of higher education and student loans. So I put 4 kids through college from about 2005 through roughly 2015. And there was a seminal event that happened. I forget if it was 2009 or 2010, but it doesn't matter. But it's when a certain Speaker of the House banged her gavel with a big old smile and said, "We just made college more accessible and not affordable." She didn't use the word affordable on purpose. Mm-hmm. And my gosh, the first 3 years, had no problem funding the kids through, but after that, it was almost impossible to not get snagged up in the loan programs. So, in my mind, it's almost a form of organized crime, but, probably a little bit thick on that.
You're not necessarily wrong on that, the way they operate. It's like, for example, my kid, if she wants to be qualified for any federal funding, I've got to fill out the FAFSA form with her, hand over my tax information to the Department of Education, and then my income determines how much my kid can get in terms of federal aid. Not that she needs it because of her scholarships, but I've always thought that was nuts. Like, I'm footing the bill here. Why is my parents' information necessary? And yet that's the way it is. And the wealthier the parent is, the worse off the kid is coming out of college. And then, of course, let's also be honest here, Chris, too. You got some people who they send their kids off to college and let them get the stupidest degrees. My favorite of all time is still the guy who wanted a master's in puppetry arts and was lobbying for Obamacare because he couldn't get a job. And I'm like, what did you think? There aren't many jobs out there on the outside the black market where you can be trained to stick your hand up the butt of a puppet and get a job. But nonetheless, I digress. The lack of all of this planning and stuff is absolutely bizarre, Chris. And yeah, I remember when Nancy Pelosi did that. It wasn't affordable. Wasn't affordability that they were cared about. They never care about affordability. They just want you to take out more loans. And then once you take out the loans from the government, they want to forgive the loans and pass the bill off to the taxpayers. It is an exceedingly corrupt system right now. The more you, by the way, if you want to do something good with your money, if you're feeling charitable, giving to local classical education schools in your area to their scholarship fund so that kids can actually get into those schools and get better educations, I think is one of the best things you could do. Fund scholarships at local private schools so that kids in failing public schools and parents who, because of changing circumstances, can't homeschool anymore, that they have an avenue to get into a classical school where kids are actually having to learn critical thinking, the Socratic method and the like. Funding scholarships at private schools for elementary and secondary education is money well spent. Now, I got to tell you about Rinnai. Let me talk to plumbers right now. Y'all know I love my Rinnai tankless water heater. And did you know that commercial heating standards are changing? The Trump administration couldn't roll back the standards in time. And so effective in October of this year, a lot of less efficient commercial water heating systems are going away. But Rinnai has commercial, highly efficient heating systems. They don't just have the tankless water heaters for the house. They got the commercial heaters that you can use, commercial jobs. And they want plumbers who are listening to the program right now, of which I know I have many. They assemble these things, their commercial products, up in Griffin, Georgia. And they offer training and support for their plumbers online. They offer training remotely. They offer training at their headquarters in Peachtree City, Georgia. If you're a plumber and you want to be prepared for these changes in regulations for water heaters happening in October of this year, reach out to Rinnai. They've got great options for you. They would love to train you on their systems. They do fantastic training and support for plumbers online, remote at their headquarters. To learn and get prepared, go to TalkingTankless.com. TalkingTankless.com. You can find your commercial solutions there. For you homeowners who want a tankless water heater, you too go to TalkingTankless.com. Find your home water heater as well. Ditch your tank.